Hey friends, today I'm going to do this video on watercolor techniques. Going to show you how to do wet on wet and dry techniques. These are basic watercolor techniques which any beginner should know. So let's get started. This is a watercolor paper, A5 size, 300 GSM. I purchase all my watercolor supplies from Amazon or Brustro, spelled as Brustro. They are my favorite brands when it comes to watercolor papers. I always mask my watercolor paper so as to bring out good and professional paintings. Some watercolorists or painters do not prefer using masking tape, but I always prefer using a masking tape because it holds your sheet in one place and you can do your paintings in a more organized way. Always put the masking tape first in the horizontal direction and then in the vertical direction, because when you'll be doing when you'll be peeling off the masking tape, it will help, it will not tear the paper. Also friends, I would like to repeat, whenever you're doing watercolors as a beginner, please do it on watercolor sheets. These are handmade cotton sheets that are available widely on internet. There are various brands. There are many brands that you can check. There are expensive brands, there are cheaper brands. I'll do a separate video on art supplies, on watercolor supplies. But as a beginner, you should know you cannot be doing watercolors on plain paper, plain chart paper or cardstocks or any other kind of paper. Watercolors has to be done on watercolor papers. Alright. So I always prefer using 2 bowls of water. One bowl is for my brushes to wash off the colors and then not use that again. The second bowl is plain water that I can use time and again in my paintings. I'm using the liquid version of watercolors. I will brief you about types of watercolors when I'm doing the supplies video. This is my favorite brand. It's called Craft Angles. It's fantastic. And these are watercolor inks that I'm using today. There is a difference between tubes, pans and inks that I'll explain you at a later date. I'll show you one more. These are liquid watercolor by Craft Angles. I'll put the details of the brand and the website that I purchased it from in the captions. So let's get started. This is my Taklon brush and the Camlin Artist brush. I always prefer using a flat brush over a round brush. Again, I will be briefing you about the brushes and art supplies for watercolor in a separate video. On the left hand side, I'm going to be doing the wet on wet technique, and on the right hand side I'll be using a dry technique. For the wet on wet technique, I have dipped my brush in plain water. Friends, do not take too much of water. Take minimal amount and spread it onto your sheet. We do not want water to overflow and spoil the look of the sheet. Also, these are 300 GSM, so there is limited amount of water that watercolor sheets can hold. Using a different flat brush, I take my color into the brush and I will dip it into the brush only once. So friends, I would like you to notice that I went into a horizontal manner and then I started doing the vertical. Don't make that mistake again. I would like to tell you, always whenever you're doing a painting or setting up the background or practicing a technique, move your brush in one direction, either vertical or either horizontal. If you use both, your painting might look blotchy, it might look a little messy, it will not look very good. If you see, I have not dipped the brush in paint or in water the second time. I'm pulling paint from the top to the bottom side. The top side has to be more dark, the medium, the second, and as you gradually go down, it should be from dark to medium to a light shade, so that the painting looks gradient. It doesn't look messy, it doesn't look blotchy. If you can see, I'm doing it in one direction so as to not let any inconsistency come into my painting. Always keep always keep a tissue or a cloth handy to remove excess of water or paint. It might get absorbed into the masking tape and spoil the look of your painting. So we're done the wet on wet technique. I'll now be showing you the second technique, which is called the dry technique, wherein you do not need to apply any coat. So let's get started. For the dry technique, I'm going to take the brush, dip it in plain water, then take a good amount of color onto my brush, and then I just begin to paint. Friends, repeating again that I use only one direction. In the left section, if you see, for the red one I had used the vertical direction. For this I'm using the horizontal. And if you see, I have taken good amount of water and good amount of paint in the brush, and I'm going from left to right direction. Again the painting has to it has to go from dark to medium to a lighter tone. You can use more paint if you'd like, but do not use more water. It will blotch up the paper. It will look very messy, and it will also go and drip onto the other side and mix with the other color and bring out a different shade and all. So if you see, I have not taken any excess color. I am using more water, which is okay in a dry technique, but in a wet technique, do not use too much water, otherwise it will blotch up your paper. So you can see there is a gradient look. I started with a darker shade, moved to a medium tone, and then there is a lighter tone. This is how the techniques should be done. Friends, I do not have a dryer today. I'm very sorry. I should have carried one. I will let the painting dry naturally. These two techniques are mostly used in for backgrounds. So now these are dry, and I'm going to show you how it looks. See, if you could see, from dark to medium to a lighter tone. I have only pulled the color with the use with the help of water. Make this look more interesting, I'm also going to show you how blending works. In watercolors, one should never use more than 3 colors. I am showing you blend of 2 colors, and please make sure you are using colors that match with each other. That will not bring out a third color. For the blue side, I'm going to use Craft Angle's liquid watercolor, which is called the Eggplant. It's a purple shade. I'm using the dry technique. So I'm going to take some paint and begin to blend it into the blue. Again, I would prefer doing it, or any watercolorist for that matter should prefer doing it in one direction. Either use the vertical direction or the horizontal. So I'm using the horizontal direction, and if you see, I'm just pulling the paint from darker tone to a medium tone to a lighter tone. I personally do not prefer using more than 2, maximum 3 colors in a painting, otherwise it will mess up the look. Watercolors are very difficult. Improving on mistakes or covering up mistakes is not an easy thing in watercolors. So if you see, there is a consistency, there is no blotching. If you feel you want a darker shade, you could always take more paint onto your brush. Take more paint, do not take more water, it will blotch up your paper. Like you see here, I've taken more purple and I'm doing up the gradient. As a watercolorist, you want consistency in your paintings. You do not want it to look messy. So this is how it is done. Now on the other side, the shade that I'm going to be using is yellow, which will make it look which will make the blend look perfect. So let's get started. Again, don't forget, we'll be doing it in one direction. So this is the yellow color that I'm going to be using. In one direction, I'll be going from top to bottom in a vertical direction. Again, from a darker tone to a medium tone to a lighter tone. If you would recall, this was a wet on wet technique when I started the video, but I'm using the dry technique to do the blend. So yes, this can be done. You can do a wet on wet technique or a wet on dry technique. You can see how nicely the blend is coming out. These both techniques are used to give a background effect. And can be done for your bookmarks, for your cards, or maybe if you would like to show a landscape painting. Say for example, you would want to show the sky. So a sky would always have either darker shade or a lighter shade. So here it is. I have used one direction. This is the blending that I am showing you. You could use more red to bring out the look of the background. Doing it in one direction, moving the brush in one direction, painting it from top to bottom in vertical lines will give you consistency. It will give your painting a professional look. Your painting will not look blotchy, your painting will not look messy. So I will leave this to dry, and once it's dry I will peel off the masking tape and show you the consistency, the gradient. So this is dry now, and I'm going to peel off the masking tape to give you a better look into how both our backgrounds have turned out. Friends, when you're peeling off the masking tape, always peel it from top to bottom, or from left to right or right to left. Don't leave it in between, otherwise your paper will tear off. So if you'd see, I removed the masking tape in a slanting manner instead of a straight direction. Let's have a closer look. So if you can see, there is consistency, there is gradients. Yes, on the blue side, if you see, because of more color that I used, the blend did not turn out very well. But on the second side, if you would see, there is consistency of the red and the yellow color. So these are two basic techniques of watercolor.